Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Be That Lawyer podcast. I am Steve Fretzin, as the announcer mentioned. And wow, we are just on a clip here, over 500 episodes, cranking out 2 a week, every single week, bringing you the best and brightest guests in the legal industry. Today is absolutely no different. Viki is waiting in the wings. How are you, Viki?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're so welcome, and I'm very excited about that. And I have to say, I've read a number of Albert Einstein quotes before, and yours right off the bat, I'm like, I haven't read that one, but that's a really good one. I'll give it to you, and then I want to hear your take on it. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing it was stupid. Welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about that quote and why that is your quote of the show.
The reason I like that quote so much is because I think a lot of people judge themselves against other people's ability. And that's the worst place to start from, because everybody has a talent, everybody has something they're good at, and everybody has something they're not so good at. And we can't all be the same. The joy of people are that we are all different. So we have to just look internally and say, where are my skills? What am I good at? This person over here is amazing at this job. Great. Let me get them to help me be better, but not judging myself against that, because we will all spend the rest of our lives thinking, well, I'm not good enough. And I kind of felt like that when I came out of school. So it resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, and I think we do spend a lot of time sort of looking to our left and our right and trying to see what everyone else is doing and what in comparing ourselves. And I think there's another quote about comparison is the ultimate something or other. It's just like, I don't remember the quote. It's been on the show though. I should remember it, but it basically like you're just, it's such a waste of time comparing yourself to others and worrying about what everyone else thinks and what everyone else is doing instead of looking forward and really through and trying to really figure out your own path.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right on. So everybody, Viki Johnston is the founder of Accelerate. And how did we meet? We were connected by someone special. And now I don't know what's wrong with my brain today.
So we met through a Provisor meeting. And,
coaches and consultants?
We were put, I think, in the same room, and we were like, hey, we need to talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to our Provisors friends. And I've had so many coaches and consultants group members come on this show, and every single one of them, and like yourself, Viki, just impresses and really just is such an expert in their space that we're able to just give 3, 4, 5, 6 takeaways. And now I've put that pressure on you. So, good luck.
Okay.
Now you got to live up. Yeah, you got to live up to it. All right. That's our goal. That's our goal for today. But before we go forward, let's step back and give us a little understanding of your background and how you got into being, kind of a leadership and communication expert.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of goes back to that quote. So I left school at 16 in the UK, which wasn't unusual. A lot of people left school at 16 those days, that long ago. But really, I left with no qualifications. I did very badly at school. I'm an undiagnosed dyslexic. I kind of self-diagnosed myself when my son was born, and I could see that he was having challenges. I was like, oh, that's kind of the same as me. So I was one of those that came out of school that said, well, clearly I'm stupid. I've got no qualifications. I've got no hope in having any kind of career. So I started work and I got a job in a call center in a large courier company, international courier company. And I've kind of figured things out really quickly that I was good at talking to people. So I wasn't good at the academic side of things, but I was really good at talking to people. And I gradually moved up within the organization into a management position. Loved managing people. I loved checking on their performance. I loved having interview conversations with people. I just loved that whole connection and the way that we communicate with people. I did a sideways shift into our training function, which at that time they were putting a lot of money into development for us. So I was taught how to design training, how to work as a consultant in a training organization, even though it was kind of we were just internal consultants, but I learned how to really connect with my audience and who are these people and what do they really need and how could I help them learn in the most effective way for them. And that was like my favorite thing. And I left my corporate job 22 years ago, set myself up as an independent, and I've been doing my own thing ever since.
So somebody's listening to this and saying, very interesting story. what's your business now? Like, what are you helping people accomplish in their businesses and their goals?
Yeah, so my favorite thing really is working with a group of leaders. And my favorite leaders are the ones that have just been promoted to a
Mm,
manager, and now they're like, "Yay, I'm a manager!" And then like, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm a manager. What does that mean?"
yeah,
So they're very motivated. They want to do well, but they don't have the skill set. So they're struggling a little bit with, well, now I have responsibility of people, and I don't really understand how to do that because I was one of them, and now I'm not one of them anymore. So I work with them. I'll step in and I'll run experiential type training. So it's very hands-on. It's gamified. So we do lots of activity, and I get them to really practice and get into practicing skills around communication. And then really seeing, well, if I say this and if I behave in this way, and if this is my body language, what's the impact of that? And taking that learning back into the workplace and then allowing them to really step into their role as a leader with
yeah.
some knowledge of how do I do that? And also how do I self-reflect and go, that didn't go quite so well.
Hey, everybody, I know you're enjoying this interview. To hear more just like this, check out all of the podcasts on our website. Link is in the description below. It's one of the most sort of undervalued aspects of life is getting feedback and learning and improving. I feel like people are just wandering through a year of business development, a year of poor management communication, a year of maybe 10 years, right? And not really stopping and saying, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I improve? And I think without the help of coaches and mentors and advisors and people that can sort of see the label from the outside of the bottle because you're on the inside, very difficult to change and make and really get to the next level in anything, in any sport, in music, food, business.
Yeah, totally. And actually what helps is I don't manage people anymore, but I have. So I've had that experience, and I've also made the mistakes in that.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to step from the outside and say, hey, look at what you're doing. How is that impacting what you're doing? Are you getting the result that you want? Or are you judging yourself by everybody else and saying, well, all these other people can manage, so I must be able to as well. You have your own skill set.
Yeah.
And I realized that as a manager, that my skill wasn't telling people what to do. It was connecting with people and finding out what they wanted so that I could help them be their best version.
Yeah. So I'm meeting with a client and I'm reviewing their business development efforts. Okay. I'm looking at their journal that we create. I'm looking at their activity. We're debriefing. And I observe that there's a disconnect between steps that they should be hitting and what they actually did. And I'm having them role play and show me what they were doing. We agree that a step was skipped. We review it, we talk it through, and then I have them do it again with it. And that's what I'm doing in my space to make sure that the skills are not just being learned, but being internalized. How do you help people do that with communication?
Yeah. So again, very similar. I love a good role play. It doesn't go down quite so
Nothing gets to
well.
the truth like a role play. Like you either can do it or you can't do it.
Well, yeah,
And it's real, it's happening, and you learn
it's
a
real.
lot. Yeah.
And I can also cry on demand. So I love being that one. I've caught many people out before where they're like, oh, I'll role play this with you. And I just play this character that completely crumbles and bursts into tears. And people are like, and then when we debrief it afterwards, they're like, I could see that actually happening. I'm like, that's exactly why you needed to be in that position. And you needed to do it in a safe environment. So mine's all about, let's screw up in the training room as many times as you possibly can. Let's get it so wrong that we can pull it to pieces and help you build it back so that the next time you do it, you don't make any of those mistakes, because there's no consequence of you messing it up in this room. There's no consequence of you making me cry. There's a consequence of you making your employee cry. So let's make sure that we can get to that when we're in a safe environment. And I also, I mean, that was kind of an extreme one, but I also like to make it kind of fun. I use some improv techniques where, we're just having fun with it.
Yeah.
They're out of their normal work environment. The pressure's off. They don't have to perform. So we get to like really see them and see how they communicate. And then we go, well, that was really good the way you did that.
Yeah.
How about
So,
we do this and make it even better?
all right, so let's take that a little further. What are the top like two or three mistakes that you see in communication and management with leaders? Things that they're just totally missing the boat on.
One of the big things is listening. We don't listen. We think we're listening because we are in space with somebody and the other person is talking. And I have a colleague that I do some training with, and he uses this phrase, which I love. It's like there are two forms of communication. One is talking and one is waiting to talk. So we're not actually listening. We're just waiting for this person to finish what they're saying, and then we can jump in and say what we want to say. And while
Can
we're
you
doing
actually,
that,
can you repeat all that again? I was busy looking
yeah,
at
I
my
know
email.
you're just distracted, not
No, I
listening.
was looking at my email while you were talking.
Yeah. And
That's,
that's the other thing. We kind of pretend like, oh yes, I can hear you, but I'm not really listening.
yeah.
And yeah, these things, all these things, they're all a distraction for us. Zoom is a nightmare when it comes to trying to communicate with people because I could just be here doing my emails while I'm on camera. And you
Well,
think,
let me give you a little insight of what I do. So I have a class that meets every Tuesday morning, and I've got a group of 10 to 12 lawyers from around the world, and I can see them all on the screen, and I can see when they start to drift off to their email, and I'll go, John, do you want to answer that question? And John, I see John go, he goes, whoa, oh, oh
what
boy.
question? Yeah.
And then they have to like suck it up in front of the group and be like, I got distracted by an email. I'm like, I know.
Just
Bring it.
that 1 second that you asked,
I'm bringing you
yeah,
back, bringing you back. Sorry, I had
yeah,
to call you out, but yes. So not listening, and it really one thing that I think too is important is to show that you're listening, not just by being there, but repeating back what someone says and demonstrating that you've listened.
yeah.
How does that, from your position, improve communication and improve relationships?
So there's a lot of stuff that paraphrasing does. And it helps us as much as it helps the other person that we're communicating with, because in order to paraphrase effectively, you need to not be thinking about your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can't think. I know we think we can multitask. We really can't. We can't think and listen to somebody at the same time. They've done a whole load of studies where they've tried to get people to do the alphabet and sums all at the same time. And it doesn't work. That our brain doesn't work that way. So we have to just not be thinking. We have to be just totally in the moment, listening to what they've said so that we can then verbalize back what we've heard. So there's that, which is the first thing. The second thing it does for us, it allows us time to percolate the answer. Sometimes what happens is somebody starts with a question and then we're already thinking the answer before they've even finished. So the question may have flipped at the end, but we've only heard the first bit, so we answer the wrong part of the question. If we really listen, and then we can verbalize that back in a paraphrase and say, so you're asking me if this and this and this, we're now able to work out the answer in our head as we are saying it. So there's no breakdown of, am I coming up with the right thing? I'm like, you're asking me these questions and my brain's going, oh, that's what I need to do about these questions. So that gives us time to figure out the answer. And as you say, and the other thing is for the other person, they feel like, oh, actually, yeah, you did hear me. You did. Those were the words that I was saying. And if somebody's saying, I'm really frustrated about this, and you're saying, so I hear that you're frustrated. I'm like, yes, I am frustrated. We're helping them be heard. And that in itself breaks down a lot of conflict because sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
They just want somebody to vent at. They want that kind of mirrored back at them so that they don't feel so isolated and alone. Yeah. And then finally, the last thing really it does for that person that you're listening to, you're repeating back and checking in. They know that you've listened, but they can also correct you. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had that situation where you've said something out loud and somebody's like mirrored it back at you and you're like, no, I kind of didn't mean it that way. Mm-hmm. That wasn't how I meant it to come out. So that other person has the opportunity to go, well, I think that was my question, but I think it's more about this actually. So now you're really getting into a conversation. You're not just like a back and forward, here's a question, here's an answer, here's a question, here's an answer. You're having a conversation and understanding each other.
Well, and I think that's so much more powerful than what might feel like an interview, right? Or just feel like a Q&A back and forth. So, and I also will, I don't know, this is not for every situation, Viki, but for networking, like the networking that we do in Provisors and for business development for lawyers, it's so important, in my opinion, to take notes. When someone is sharing their problems, their challenges, their frustrations, how deep the rabbit hole goes, and you're trying to remember all of that and the next question and everything else that's going to happen in this meeting, very difficult to do. It's like when I go to, and I've said this before on the show, like when I go to a restaurant and I've got, an order that isn't, just, I'll take the hamburger, right? Like I have a special way I want it cooked, certain type of cheese, all that, and they don't write it down. And I know right away, this is not going to come back right.
Yeah,
right? Pretty straight, pretty standard,
yeah.
pretty standard.
That's kind of how that happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and the other thing about making notes, which yes, is really important. The tricky part about that is when we're doing this virtually and you're talking and I've got my head down and I'm making notes.
Yeah.
I still need to be able to maintain that communication with you. So there's another skill aspect there around you being able to say, so let me just paraphrase that. Did I get that right? Let me just make a note. Okay, paraphrase the next thing. Did I get that right? Let me just make a note. So we have to be even more communicative now that we're doing this virtually. We have to be able to kind of say, I'm not looking out the window, I'm looking at my second screen, those kind of things. We have to let people know because they're not in our heads. They don't know what we're doing.
Yep. Right on. Now, something that you and I have in common, and I'm in common from the standpoint of I know 10% and you know 100%, is NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. Most people don't know anything about that. They might have heard a term like mirroring, but how does NLP and a knowledge of it help with communication in the office, with prospects, with anybody you're interacting with?
Yeah, so I was the same as you, actually. I've known about NLP. It's been around for a long time. It's not a new thing. And I've been using things like mirroring, body language, verbal language, but for a long time. And then about 6 years ago, I went with a friend to an NLP weekend. And I just went because she was interested, like, oh, come for moral support. Well, the more I got into this particular program, it blew my mind. Just the amount of power that we have in our own internal thoughts that I hadn't really got into. I was really only just touching the surface. So for me, the power of NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, it is about the programming we have in our head. And most of that we have no idea is even there. So the way that we respond to things, so the triggers that we have, they're all internalized. And it could be, I work with people doing presentation skills training, and often people, I couldn't possibly get up there and speak. Well, why not? Why? We're not. There's no saber-toothed tiger in the room here now. You're perfectly safe standing up here talking. It's because they've internalized a dialogue in their head that is maybe when they were very young, they were told just to sit quietly and let the adults talk, or something has happened, and not in a traumatic way. But something has happened to them that they have internalized in a dialogue, and that now becomes part of their subconscious response to things. And we go over and over that in our head. So every time we say, I couldn't possibly do that, we're just reinforcing that message that we've already got, that we couldn't possibly do that thing. Yeah. So it opened up so much possibility for me when I realized the power of that internal voice that we have. I've always known about the power of the external voice, but that internal voice has a bigger impact on everything than I had even considered until I went down that road.
Yeah. Internal voice, mindset, they're kissing cousins, if you will. And without having a positive mindset, without really being in a position to communicate effectively, or having the fear of communicating, it can really, really, hurt your chances of getting business, of building relationships, of managing people effectively. So it all comes around. Yeah. Do you remember that statistic that came out a long time ago? Like only 7% of communication is verbal. I think that was changed recently.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the old school of thought. I still go with that because I still think, you can use words. We now know that all the different forms of communication we have. I could send you a text message, and you had to interpret everything around those words. You had to decide, what kind of mood was I in when I sent it? Was I joking? Was I angry? Was I complaining about something, you're having to create, so what would be the 93% of communication I didn't give you with that text message, you're having to establish what that is without anything else from me. And that's where communication breaks down a lot, because we assume that the person that sent me that email in capitals was shouting at me. We don't assume that, oh, maybe their caps lock got locked on and they didn't notice. Or maybe they're just trying to make a point.
Or maybe they're just lazy and they don't want to have to deal with caps. Just
exactly. But yeah, it could be multiple reasons why those things happen. But we always think everybody thinks like me. So therefore, if I think this is what they meant, then that's what they meant.
Yeah.
And and we judge people by their behavior, and we judge ourselves by our intention. So it's completely different.
Yeah. Another great tool that you're involved in that I've been doing for, I'll just put a number and say 22 years, has been DISC assessments. And I used to do this for a lot of different companies. Now I just do it internally for my clients, because know thyself, right? So know how you're communicating, do's, don'ts, how you like to be communicated on, and otherwise. And then I'm also sort of teaching my clients, this is why you're not communicating well with this partner or this client or this prospect, because they're different than you, and you're being you and they're being them. And it's not necessarily making things run very smoothly. Like, I'm an extrovert, experiential type person, and I'm dealing with an introvert who just wants to, tell me what wants to put the code together or whatever. And I'm like, that's not for me. What have you learned from DISC, and what is that, what does DISC stand for? And then what does it teach us about human behavior?
Yeah. So for me, DISC is such a fascinating tool. And there are lots of tools. That's just really one of them. Where I like to use DISC is more of a, who are your team? So I let's categorize it into the different, are they a task focused person, or are they a people focused person? So you've got your D's and your C's that are just into the detail. Then you've got your I's and your S's, which are all about people. And then you have fast and slow people. So you've got your conscientious people and your, the people that want to just check in with everybody and make sure the sensitive people, is everybody okay? I'm going to go in really slowly. Or you've got you're an I like me, or a D, and you're just like, no, let's just get it done. Come on, everybody. We were talking about role plays. I mean, that's such an I thing to do. Come on, everybody, come up and do a role play. But what I like to do is not necessarily get them to focus on themselves. I talk to them from a team aspect. Who do you have in your team? How many C's do you have? How many D's do you have? Or maybe you're the only D, which is normally what happens in a leadership position. So what do these other people need from you? And this might be your preferred style, but how are you going to be able to adapt? And I like to think about leadership as being a bit of a chameleon, in that I don't want people to change their personality, or, I'm going to become more sensitive. I'm like, well, no, it's not who you are, but just recognize that other people are more sensitive. So you might just need to adapt your style with that person in order to get the best thing from that person. And then somebody else is going to come along and they'll be different again. So what do they need from you? So I love it from a team aspect. Who do I have? What do they need?
Yeah. I've done a ton of that for teams, and it really does help for them to understand how everyone else is built differently. And the rule when I was growing up was treat people the way you want to be treated. We kind of all grew up with that. And what this sort of tells us is treat people the way they want to be treated. And so the idea that I'm going to, talk big picture with someone who wants the detail, or someone that wants I had a guy again try to explain to me how he's going to code my website. And I was like, buddy, you just stop right there. I don't care at all how you code my website. When's it going to get done? And what's it going to do?
Is it going to look great?
Is it going to look great? And what's it going to do for me? And that's it. And he was like, oh, I was like, oh, sorry. But I think the better we become at communicating, whether it's neurolinguistic programming, whether it's DISC, which is dominance, influencing, steadiness, and compliance, whether it's just how we get better at communicating, it's really kind of the key to great management, leadership.
I couldn't agree more. And it's all relationships. So there's the NLP journey for me wasn't just about my career. It was me as a whole person. How do I communicate with my kids and my husband and my family? And How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if
Yeah.
we can think about, and I'm probably better at communicating with my clients than I am with my husband, to be fair, because he should know me by now. But
I'll tell you something funny that was on my disc when I did it when, 20 something years ago, I did my own disc and I was, engaged at the time and all of that. And I remember showing my fiance, Lisa, at the time, the do's and don'ts of communication with Steve Fretzin. And one of the don'ts is don't give him your opinion unless he asks for it. And she looked at that and she looked at me and she goes, I don't think so. I said, all right, I guess, but she did give me the benefit. She goes like this is what she'll do. She goes, you probably don't want my opinion on this subject, but if you do, let me know. And I was like, well, all right. Now I have an option. Of course, I always have to say yes, but that's besides the point. That's marriage 101. So
no, of course, yeah, that you have to agree with your wife.
yes,
That's
right.
marriage 101. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly,
totally.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this up with a new segment called Viki's Big Mistake. And what is something that happened in your career that you would say was a big mistake, but you learned something really extraordinary from it?
Yeah, so I guess I've had my own business for 22 years, and I have moved countries. So in all those times I've been running my business, I've also been moving. So I've been restarting and restarting and restarting. And after probably about the fourth time of restarting my business, I suddenly realized that and it actually came through an NLP program that I was working on, that I didn't value the monetary cost of what I'm doing. So I realized that the value of money wasn't like high up for me. So I was doing a lot of stuff for free. I was undercutting myself because people would say, oh, could you help me with that? And I'd be like, okay, I'll do that. And then I realized that, by not charging what I'm worth, it actually doesn't help anybody else either, because maybe they are not feeling like they're getting what their money's worth, or I'm not actually giving them the value. So there was a lesson for me there around how much do I charge for what I do.
Yeah.
And
I think that's so important that there are lawyers listening right now that are undercharging what they should be. My father, the late great Larry the lawyer, he was walking in the city after he retired, and he was approached by a woman, and she said, Larry, it was a client of his. Are you practicing? Oh my God, are you practicing? He goes, no, I'm retired. I'm just in the city for this, that, and the other. And she goes, oh my God, you were the best lawyer I ever had. And God, were you cheap? And it's like, boom, head explode. I mean, are you kidding me? And I think my father had confusion about fairness and what his value was. And so I think we have to take a really close look at what we're providing, our value and our experience, and how that all plays out. What does the market bear? And we've got to look at what our rates are. And I've helped a lot of lawyers jack up their rates to where they should be, as opposed to where they were, where they're 20 to 50% underneath where they really should be to compete. So really, really good lesson there for everybody. Let's take a moment and just thank our wonderful sponsors. Of course, PimCon coming up in October in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona with my friend Chris Dreyer. You're going to want to check that out, especially if you're in PI. That's the way to go. And of course, the Law Her podcast with Sonia Palmer. Terrific podcast. Really working with, inspiring women all over. And want to just mention the new Be That Lawyer, 101 Top Rainmaker Secrets to Growing a Successful Law Practice on Amazon. Grab a copy. If you love this show, you're going to love the book because it is taken from the show. The best rainmaker tips that you've heard from the show, all in one book. Viki, so wonderful having you. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to hear more about Accelerate, what's the best way to reach you?
So you can check out my website. I mentioned earlier I'm undiagnosed dyslexic, so I spell Accelerate in a very quirky way. It's EXELORATE. So you can check out my website. You can also email me. It's Viki, VIKI, @accelerate.com. I would love to hear you. Or find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there too. Yeah.
There we go. And it's VIKI. So that's a good, nice way to spell Viki.
Yeah. See? Yeah. Quirky. That's the way to go. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I can just, I mentioned at the beginning, 3, 4, 5, 6 takeaways. And I think we hit that mark 100%. So I just want to, tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show,
Shout out to provisors, coaches, and consultants continuing to provide value for me and for my show. And I hope that there's more that we can do together beyond the show today.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.
Let's
Cheers.
do it. Okay.
Are you a cheers person?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. All right. Just
I just
checking.
need a glass of wine. That's all.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Viki. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today on the Be That Lawyer podcast, helping you to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk again soon. If you want to check out more about what Fretzin does every day to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker, please check out our services page on our website. Just go to the website, check it out. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks.